Okay, let's get it popping. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Train Your Brain podcast, where you can enhance your mindset to enhance your life. I'm Michaela, your host, and today we have our awesome guest, Mark Sephton. So, Mark, I know that you are a man of many trades. I know that you have your hands in a lot of pots, including but not limited to a writer for Entrepreneur Magazine and a writer of two top-selling leadership books. And I want to give you the chance to further introduce yourself and let everyone know what you have done, what you're doing now, things like that. So take it away, Mark.
Beautiful. I love how you said a hand in many pots. In the UK, we always say a hand in many pies. I think we're always renowned for loving our food. It's true. People say, "Oh wow, Matt, you've got many hats to what you do," and I say I do have many hats, but I have the same head, and I think that's really important. That regardless of all the hats and all the fingers in pies, they all have a common denominator, which is influence. That's my mission. I really want to get inside the head and the heart of people to really help them unlock themselves, see who they really are. And I'll do that through writing. As you said, I write for Entrepreneur. I've wrote a couple of self-leadership books. I've just written my third book, which I'm going to launch later in the year. So I'm excited for that one. I am also been writing for Brainz magazine for the last 7 months. And just more recently, I've just joined their leadership team. So I'm now Brainz magazine ambassador, and I host their Clubhouse rooms, and also will be hosting their up and coming podcast. So really looking to utilize my skills. Having been in radio for 6.5 years, I then pivoted into TV, really enjoying the whole medium of Clubhouse, creating a topic, great energy, great environment for people to come and share and communicate. And you've been fantastic in that medium. I've really enjoyed your input too. And I'm in the business of really getting the best out of people. I think that it's so important that we take the God-given gifts that we've been given and we're faithful with them. And then we really utilize them to not only, create a business, but also create actually a legacy, something that outlives you and I, and I think that's really important. So, my real driver is can I influence and can I impact through what I do? Whether I'm emceeing a conference or an event, whether I'm speaking on a keynote talk, whether I'm hosting a room on Clubhouse, whether I'm writing for Entrepreneur or Brainz, whether I'm writing a book, whether I'm mentoring an entrepreneur, really it's the essence of my ability to be able to take my learnings, my failings, my struggle, the way that I do things, and invest it into somebody else who can then run with it. And yeah, love being here. Thank you so much for having me, Michaela. I'm excited for the next 45 minutes.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you're here today. And yeah, like you were saying, Clubhouse is a great place to connect with people. It's not like any other social media platform, really, where you have your mutual followers or people you already know, or you'd have to search up something specifically. It's kind of like you can jump into a room and start talking or listen to someone else speaking and connect with someone from across the world, or someone in your own country, but just someone that you otherwise would have never met. So it's definitely a really cool place to connect with people. And we never would have been on this podcast had it not been for that. So I think it's really cool. And people get to share all their expertise, whatever they may be into. And you can pick whatever your specific genre is that you're looking for, whether it be real estate, whether it be entrepreneurship, anything like that. So with having all of these things going on, what is one way that you would say, or not just one way, you don't have to limit yourself, what are some ways that you would say you find time for solace, some ways that you can unwind and have time to yourself? And you're also a father as well, so with having a lot of things to take care of, I'm sure especially your children and having a lot of moving parts, what are some ways that you take time for yourself and take time to just give your mind a rest?
Yeah, I mean it's a great question, Michaela. I'm very intentional, so I would say that I've lived intentionally for the last probably 9 years. So I really am intentional. I do things with heart or not at all. So I'm really mindful of what I give my energy to and what I carve out, and I make sure that I'm not just becoming rich in financial circumstances, but being rich in relationships. So, I'm a big believer, as Jim Rohn said, we're the average of the 5 people that we associate ourselves with. So relationships are really my top priority in terms of what I do. And I get a lot of fuel and energy from the people that I hang around with. It's always, if you're hanging around the right people, it'll always result in high levels of joy and happiness. And also, if you're hanging around with the wrong people, it'll result in high levels of, sadness. And one of the things that I do with clients, I get them to um, really mark out of 10 their joy levels every day. And it's just 1 to 10, 10 being really joyful, 1 being super sad, almost depressed. Get people to score that every day, and write a few notes as to why. And when I've looked over those notes historically, and even over my own notes, there's two main reasons that people are the most happy. It's the people they associate with, and it's personal or professional progression. And the flip
Mm.
side of that, those that are really sad are those that are hanging around with the wrong people, and also not progressing personally and professionally, kind of lost their way. So, in terms of the balance of me hustling and doing so many great things, I also am really intentional about my downtime, about my relationships. So, whether I'm playing football with a bunch of guys on a soccer field, or whether I'm with my kids, for me, being mindful of really what it is that I want in life really helps me stay on track with being able to manage all the different intricate responsibilities. But I'm a big believer that you can only give out of what you have. You've got to take care of your own reservoir so that you can really then pour into others. We hear about your emotional cup, that you have to kind of take care of you first in order to then take care of others. So I think intentionally being mindful of what's really important to you, and only committing to the things. I talk about the 3 filters in terms of my energy management. So I only say
Yeah.
yes to the things that excite me, the things that play to my strengths, and the things that take me to where I want to go. And typically that's how I manage my time, so that I don't overcommit. And it often doesn't feel like work if you're doing those 3 things, doing the things you love with the things that you're good at, and having the ability to say yes to the things that are really going to take you to where you want to go. I shared at the start of this podcast that my vision and my mission is really around impact. It's about influencing one. So if it gives me an opportunity to influence one, plays to my strengths, and it excites me, I'm all in.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Yeah, I do. I remember you had also said that in a Clubhouse room that we were in, you had the 3 pillars and you base everything off that. And I have heard very similar things before, of course, like the saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And just with peers that I've been speaking to as well, if they'll have a lot going on, and I ask them, how do you not burn out, how do you do it, and they're like, well, I love everything that I do, so it doesn't feel like it's just work constantly. I'm doing everything with purpose, so I think that that's very important. Of course sometimes people have to pay the bills, and people have to have a job that they might not necessarily want to keep forever, but then their side hustle, so to speak, is their passion, and then that can eventually, with hard work, and since you're doing it while you're also doing your other job, that can turn into your moneymaker in the future, and then you can just keep building and building off of that. So I think that that was a fantastic answer. And do you feel that you are ever very overwhelmed, or do you for the most part feel like, okay, this is my purpose, this is my mission, and even if I get a little flustered or overwhelmed, then I can just pick back up and I'll be fine?
I think where I still get flustered and I have to like be really mindful, it's factors that I can't control. I really like being able to problem solve, and I love to be able to, if something isn't working in my life, be able to shift it, turn an apple into a pear, turn green into blue. I love that sort of ability to actually master my own, ship, and really drive that. And I think the hardest thing is when there's things that you're kind of reliant on other people to do, and you can't control how quickly or how slowly they move, or even what they say or what they do. So I think that's quite frustrating, because I'm a doer. and I only touch things once, so if it's a mail or a text, I'm pretty quick at responding. And typically I don't go to bed until every message has been replied to. And it's probably a bit OCD of me, but actually,
Okay.
for me, that makes me feel like I'm in control. So I think the test for me is when there's decisions or choices or me waiting on others, and there's not a lot of people actually that can keep up with me in terms of turnaround and being a doer. Like I'm a doer. If I start something, I finish it. There's plenty of people out there. They've got about 8 projects and none of them are done. I start one, I'll finish it. And I think that's really one of the keys to my own success, and also one of my frustrations, because people, promise the world, but very few deliver. And it's always easy to start something. The strength of character and your success is your ability to finish.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I've definitely like seen a lot of people start a few things and then, kind of lose interest or fall off. And maybe some of that has to do with, okay, midway through they're realizing this isn't for me, or this isn't really aligning with what I want to do with my life. But in the same vein, you have to be mindful of all of the things that you're starting and why you started them to begin with. So I think a lot of people lack the why. Just some people are doing something for, whether it be, oh, I want to have a lot of money, or I want a lot of notoriety, or I want XYZ. But they're not really looking inward to say, okay, why is this? Why do I want a lot of money? Is it security that I want? Is it to know that I can provide? What is it? So I think that really focusing in, like you were saying before, on the pillars, the values of what you want, like how you can narrow down your search and not start so many things and then not finish them. But since you are starting so many things and finishing all of them, it sounds to me like you are only starting things that do align with what you want, and only starting things that make sense to you for who you are. Do you think that that's an accurate statement?
Yeah, I think that, we'll all be remembered for what we completed. People won't say, oh, Michaela started a podcast, and it lasted a week. People aren't going to remember that. And you were talking about reasons why people give out. A lot of it is because they do it for the wrong reason.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing it for the right reason, you either find a way, you evolve it, you reinvent, and that's really important. You've got to stay relevant. If you lose your relevance in business, then you're not going to be in business for long. You've got to remain relevant. You've got to keep your audience, your customer front and center, and there's a lot of people, they jump on a bandwagon, and then over time they just give up, and I think this is my 34th day in a row on Clubhouse where I've turned up every day, and produced a room, a topic, an environment where people can come and talk. And I've got the stamina, the hunger, and the desire for it. Because while I get a lot out of it, I know a lot of other people get a lot out of it too. That's why they keep showing up, and I love creating. And it's really important that we do anything. They say success is 80% of just keep showing up, doing the same old day after day, but without a loss of enthusiasm. That's the realization of what perseverance means. It's to continue regardless of discouragement, obstacle. You always just keep proceeding regardless. And I love that. It's like if I close my eyes and see me walking towards, the light, and there's obstacles, there's challenges, there's people saying stop, there's weights of the world on me, and yet you just keep driving forward. It's a beautiful picture, of you just keep going regardless of the discouragement, regardless of the outside factors. You just are hungry just to keep blazing your trail, beating your own drum, and just keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that hunger for life is something that is very, very powerful. And sometimes people get comfortable in a situation and they don't have that same kind of drive. But we need that. I think that that's what gets us to where we want to go. Because if you're doing something and you fail, but it's something that you know that you're meant for, something you know that if you do this, you could add value to so many people's lives, then I think when something gets in your way or there's an obstacle, you just realize, okay, this particular avenue is not the way that I'm going to go to get to my goal. This particular way is not working for me. So I have to switch gears and go for the same thing, but just do it in a different way. So I think that that's very powerful when you have, like you were saying, the weight of the world on you, when there's obstacles, when there's people telling you no, stop signs, roadblocks, then you just keep going, you keep pushing forward because you know that this is what you are meant to do.
Exactly. And we need a bit of pressure. One of my most watched YouTube videos is called "How to Give Birth," and I have to say it's probably a bit of a marketed genius on my side, on my part, because if you Google "how to give birth," literally you'll see loads of women like screaming, and then you've got a thumbnail with my pretty face on it, and people are like, "What is this guy? You know, how dare he talk about how to give birth?" And I'm obviously talking metaphorically, but I'm talking about the fact that we've all got a dream and vision within us, and we need pressure and we need tension in order to birth what's within us out. And so often it's hard to understand that when you're going through difficulty, but when you come out the other end and you realize that the pressure, the tension, the obstacle, the setbacks, the tension on you actually has helped birth what's within out. That's why a lady has contractions. She needs that pressure, needs that tightening of her diaphragm to be able to birth the baby out. And it's the same in our life in terms of what's within us, the potential, the hunger, the manifestation of an idea. You know, it's the ability to take the pressure and be able to utilize that to birth what's within out of us.
Absolutely. It's like pressure makes diamonds, you know that saying? And I mean it's true. It's a saying for what we do on our day-to-day, but it's also true. If you are under pressure, you will rise to the occasion and figure out another way. And one of the things that the human brain is best at is problem solving. So if there's something put in front of you and you don't know what to do, when you're in a situation where you're like, I have to figure this out, then more often than not, you will figure it out because that's the only way. And so I think when we can see examples of that and we can see role models and other people doing it, then we're more inclined to not just give up at the first no, not just give up at the first sign of struggle. So for you, did you have any role models growing up, or do you have any role models now, or people that you highly respect or look up to that you can kind of not follow their model, but people that you have taken great value in?
Yeah, it's interesting, the whole role models. I've never really put anybody on a pedestal. It's
Mm,
interesting. I have some friends that are celebrities, and I think the reason I'm friends with them is because they know that I don't go "Ugh," like I don't go all hero worship. I very
mm,
much treat them like a human being. So there's certain things that I love in a number of different people, and I always think that you can learn strength from everybody. I can learn strength from my children. Another YouTube video I did with Eva, she's 7 now, but on YouTube she was 2, and
aw.
I did a video called Three Things You Can Learn from a 2-year-old. You know, and you know, for me it's, yes, there's people in the public eye that I really love. It's either their energy or the way they do things. I must admit it's easier for me to take knowledge from somebody that I like. There's some people in the world that have big following, have big reputations. They're good at what they do, but I really don't like them as people. And you know, so they're not going to be people that I necessarily will listen to, purely because if I don't like you, I'm not prepared to hear what you're saying, even if what you're saying could better me. I would rather find somebody whom I like and also can add, to me. So, there's people, like Gary V, that I really like. I love his energy. I love the fact he's so direct. I love the fact that he gives. He's somebody that I listen to, but I never put all my eggs in one basket. And some people, again, they worship Gary V. Same with Tony Robbins. Everybody has to follow him around, which I don't like. I personally think that the person that really is somebody to follow is the person that can give me what it is that I need and enables me to stand on my own 2 feet without having to keep getting a fix. And as much as people love Tony Robbins, and there's certain things that I really like, I don't overly like the fact that there's so much emotional hype around that. And then when people go back into reality, uh, they struggle, and so they end up having to go to another event. And I think, for me, I really want to be around people that are going to give me the tools, give me the knowledge, but to be able to keep me out of the doctor's surgery, keep me out of being codependent on what they do. You know, and one of my friends, he's a naturopath in Tabby in Stockholm. He's called Michael Klintmark. I love the fact that when he has a client, his main mission is to keep them out of his clinic. He's not interested in keeping them in the clinic so he can earn, you know, more money. He's interested in giving people the tools and the resource. So they're my role models, people that actually on the front line, that actually giving you the tools and the resources. Yeah, so role models, yeah, I don't overly gravitate to some of the, you know, the big shots, as you call it. I kind of gravitate more towards what my kids can teach me and what my friends can.
That is very, very powerful. Yeah, because we can't put one person, like you said, on a pedestal, because everyone has their own flaws, everyone has their own setbacks and things that make them imperfect. So if you can rely on yourself and then take the tools that other people give to you as things that you can carry on with you, and then, as times change in your life, you can reevaluate, then that's very powerful. And like you were saying, the talk with your 2-year-old is very, very, it's a very good idea, because then when she gets older, she can watch that too, and she can learn from herself from when she was younger. um, and so I think it's just always a good idea to, yeah, not have one singular person as a role model per se or anything like that, but have people that you can take from. And I also listen to Gary Vee and Tony Robbins, and I think they're fantastic. But as well, something you said was very interesting, that if you go to one of these talks and you leave feeling very hyper and on top of the world, but then you'll have to go to another one and another one because you're not applying the lessons that you had just learned to your own life. So I think that that is something that's very, very applicable to a lot of people. Not everyone, certainly, but a lot of people will hear something inspiring or will read a great book and feel really, really high on life and then crash and be right back to where they started. So I think instead of taking a million different pieces of advice at once and trying to apply it to your life all at the same time, I think taking the certain things that you think are most important to you right now and applying those and gradually doing it, I think is a tool that is very helpful for a lot of people. So have you had any experience where you've had to make a big sweeping change and do a lot of different things at once and it's worked out? Or do you think that your style is more learning something and then applying it and then learning something else and applying it? Because I know it's a little bit different for a lot of people, and people will have different times in their life where they need to make a bunch of changes at once, or sometimes people have the luxury of making smaller ones incrementally. So what do you think is more your style, or something that's worked for you more so?
Yeah, I mean, we live in an information overload. There's information everywhere. I mean, Google has become like the worldwide library. You know, in some ways, there's no excuse to not know, and yet people still act like they haven't heard it before. You know, and I talk about the difference between information and revelation. And we want revelation because revelation is actually what is going to make a difference. And what I mean by revelation is you take the information, you then apply it with action, then it becomes revelation. It goes from head knowledge to heart knowledge to a connection which flows between the head and the heart. And there's a nice synchronicity there. So I've learned what the information is. I'm now applying it to my life. It's now manifesting in my life. It's now showing up in my life, you know, and it's something that is tangible, something that I can see the growth of, you know. And for me, you know, there isn't sweeping changes of revelation that I have. It's little subtleties of revelation where I'll learn something or I'll hear something, I'll then apply it, I'll then breathe life into it, give it a DNA, see it manifest, see it show up in my life, and then it turns to revelation, and then revelation should always produce fruit. And I always tell people to look at fruit. If the fruit is good, then you know the source of what you're tapping into is also healthy and good, you know. And for me, it's really about the little things now. I think when you've been in personal development, you're constantly learning. I'm constantly learning, and it's almost like the more you know, the less you know. So the more that I understand, that then I realize actually there's still lots of things for Mark Sephton to learn. And you know, your hunger determines your filling. Your ability to stay hungry, as we already talked about, really determines how much you can eat. You know, and I've
Mm.
got an appetite and I'm ready to eat, but it's more of the little hors d'oeuvres, the little the little snacks, the little appetizers that you get along the way rather than the main meal, in terms of really kind of, you know, what I'm kind of, you know, picking up from the little sushis of revelation.
I like that. The sushis of revelation. That's good. And when you manifest, when you have it going from your head to your heart, and then that connection, and you see it come into fruition, are there any tips that you would say that are aiding you in your manifestation? Because I know this is a kind of a hot topic. Of course, it's always been around and it's always been spoken about, but I think right now in particular, people are very into the word manifestation and discovering it and digging deeper. So can you speak more on how you manifest?
Yeah, I think with anything, you've got to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and you know, what is it? What do they say? Practice makes progression, doesn't make perfect. You know, I'm a progressionist, not a perfectionist. You know, if you want to see something manifest in your life, then you've got to keep doing it day after day after day. You know, been on Clubhouse actively for what, 7 weeks. I started off with no followers. I have about 2,000 now, and the reason I've got 2,000 is because you have to keep showing up. Too many people get caught in measuring the result, but actually the key in life and in business is to measure the action. If you measure
Mm,
the action, then the byproduct of that is the result. And it's the same with manifestation. You've got to make sure that your action of what you've learned, of what you believe is now true, you've got to keep applying it day after day. Again, going back to that, not being discouraged, but keep your foot on the pedal, keep pushing, you know, keep believing, you know, keep tapping into what is, you know, a new way of thinking, you know. And it takes what, 30 days to create a new habit, you know, the life cycle of a fly, I think they say it is. There's a few little differences of opinion, but don't get caught up in that. Anything, you know, takes time to create a new route, a new path, whether it's in the dirt or in the grass. You know, you got to keep walking it out.
absolutely. I like that a lot. Yeah, because it's the tiny intricacies of your everyday that will create the kind of life that you want. I think some people will have these big goals, and I know that I've done this before myself. Before I knew better, I would have a big goal and I'd be very excited about it, and try to carry that out without first carrying out the smaller things, smaller things that were actually big things that were creating my habits and creating my life every day. I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm not going to clean this, or I'm not going to pay attention to this work or this study that I have to do because I want to focus all my attention on this big grand goal. Meanwhile, how was I going to expect myself to put in the effort and put in the work in the bigger goal if I wasn't paying attention to the small things, the nitty gritty of the everyday? So I think that a lot of times we'll get caught up in, oh, okay, I can just, abracadabra make something happen because I know I'll put in effort this time, when you haven't been necessarily applying yourself in the other areas of your life. So I definitely like that. The key to manifesting is just to do something over and over. And I know that a lot of people also believe that there's a psychologist as well who has an act as if theory. So if you act as if something has already happened, then you can get in that energy that you want to create it. And so I'm a believer in that as well. If you can sit and meditate and cultivate the energy and the feelings that you want from a desired outcome, then it's kind of like you're already in that. So do you spend much time? Do you meditate at all, or do you pray? Do you have a version of that that's unique to you?
Yeah, I mean, I pray, I talk to God throughout the day. I ask God to, you know, to give me, you know, direction, give me words of wisdom. You know, even on Clubhouse, I ask God to, you know, speak to me so that I can be His mouthpiece. You know, not always,
Oh
you
no,
know, yeah,
you
pray.
broke up. Sorry, the last about 10 seconds got cut off. You said you talk to God and you'll ask Him to be your mouthpiece, or you to be His mouthpiece.
Yeah. I ask Him to give me direction, you know, and a word of wisdom for somebody at times, you know, and in terms of, you know, meditating, yeah, I'm quiet, I listen, I do some breathing, you know, I listen to sounds, you know, I practice gratitude. all these things compounded together are the things that really do then cause a manifestation. It's not, just one specific thing. I don't think it works with just one component, but it works with several, like you were talking about, in terms of, it's kind of like a vision board in terms of the intention of what's to come. I don't think that on its own is enough, but I think compounded with all the other things that we talk about, I think those things are what really kind of brings it to the fore.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking the inspired action as well as having the forethought and feeling what you're going to feel. So, do you think that you were always as driven as you are now, or do you think that you had to kind of learn to be this way? Or how did you get when you were first starting up and you were first seeking out your passion? How do you think you realized that being a TV host or a Clubhouse personality or a writer, like how do you think that you came upon these things? Did you always know, or was it you were just kind of going along and seeing what inspired you in that moment and going after thing by thing?
I think your gifting makes room for you. I think there's some things that become very obvious without much effort. I think even as a kid on the playground, other kids would come and confide in me about X, Y, Z, something really personal, something raw, maybe even a secret. So people naturally had an ability to really open up to me. And I always loved people. I loved the underdogs. I was very mindful. I was bullied at school, so I kind of always had that sense of looking out for the ones less fortunate and speaking up and putting my arm around and being inclusive. And you would have experienced that in Clubhouse. I let anybody come up on stage as long as they're respectful and concise. And I think that these things, these little giftings that I had, they do make room for you. And then I think it's just a matter of having the right platforms to then take the skill, take the ability, and then express it in the right platform. And so, having this ability where people would open up to me. I did a leadership consultancy training program. I got a diploma in life coaching. There's little things that I learned along the way, both academically and self-education as well. And you take your experience and you create something beautiful out of it. Yeah, so that would be some of my thoughts, Michaela, on that particular question.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for answering that because I definitely think that some people will get overwhelmed, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a luxury to have the choice of what we want to do because X amount of years ago, if your father was a farmer, you were a farmer. We didn't really have much of a choice unless you really, really pushed it and kind of broke free and did your own thing. But then, you might not have many resources or connections. So this day and age, we have a multitude of connections and resources and opportunities to network available to us. So I think now it can be quite overwhelming. Like you were saying before, we're in the age of information. We definitely are. And so there's a lot of pros to that. One of the cons is having to sift through the inaccurate or false information to get to the real, but it's certainly available to us. So I think it can be quite overwhelming, especially when you're first, if you're getting out of college or at any time in life. But if you're getting out of college and kind of like, okay, now what? I've been in school for my whole life, and now what do I do, and where do I go? So I think what you were saying about always people would confide in you and people felt that they could trust you is a very powerful sign. I've had that as well in my life. People have told me that, oh, no one else knows this, what I'm about to tell you, or, I've only told one or two very close other people, or, they'll come to me for advice. And I love giving it to them. I like helping people. And if there's something that I don't know the answer to, I'll say, I don't know. I've never been in this situation. But I can look this up for you and see if other people have, or I can see, what this psychologist has to say about this or something like that. So I've always definitely been inclined to help people and inclined to work things through with people, or just be, there to listen to what they have to say. So I think that being a natural healer or a natural giver is something that we can recognize early on and kind of connect the dots and see what has already happened in our lives. So out of all the things that you have done so far, I know, of course, you've been called to all of them and you feel passionate about all of them. Is there anything in particular that you feel that you would want to do forever?
Well, I think in some ways it will happen anyway because it's probably being a dad. Um, I think my greatest work is being a father. I've got two beautiful princesses and a prince. I'll always be their dad, even when I die. That's a privilege and an honor and something that I love. And I've always said that I'm not willing to be the greatest mentor I can be if it means I can't be the greatest father that I can be. Am I a great father? Sometimes. Is the things that I even ask my kids to challenge me on? Yes. And do I apologize when I get it wrong? I do. Because I think it's really important that actually it wouldn't feel right or be true to me if I'm making a difference to people's lives that are my clients, and then I leave my children kind of less than what they could have been if I'd actually spent some time investing on them, loving on them, making time for them. So I think my greatest work and the most exciting thing for me is that I'll always be their dad. And I absolutely love that because they're beautiful. And at the end of the day, I'm the reason, well, I'm half the reason why they're here. So I have a responsibility to them to help them be and do more than I ever did. And that's exciting because I started my kind of entrepreneurial journey at 26, and I'm already starting to do little things with my kids. My eldest, who's 13, she does my accounts with me. So at the end of the tax year, we look over my income and my expenditure, and I help her add up my receipts and involve her that way with my son. He's 11. Haven't done it recently because of COVID, but I'd take him to like networking events, especially expeditions, and I'd ask him a couple of questions like, which like business that's exhibiting today really speaks to you and why. So I'm getting him to look at little basic principles in terms of brand, and I love that stuff. And this week or last week when I had some pictures come through from a photo shoot, had my little Eva with me, and I said, Eva, which two are your favorites? And she told me and she explained why. And I think, for me, just being a dad is got to be the best thing ever, regardless of everything else I've done or ever do. I think being a dad is just a beautiful gift.
Wow. I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, obviously I'm not a dad, but I'm saying, from what you said, I think that that is a very beautiful thing to say. And they can grow up, and it sounds like they're going to have a beautiful, they already do have a beautiful and loving and kind relationship with their father. And you all feel very comfortable with each other. And, when you're looking at the tax forms with your daughter, you're bringing your son to the networking events, they can grow up and be that much more prepared for anything that life is going to throw at them, and that much more eloquent and able to have a voice for themselves, which I think is very powerful. So I think that that's wonderful.
Yeah,
And
there's actually something you said on Clubhouse that I really loved. Out of everything you said, this is the one thing that stuck with me. You said that life never gets easier, just our ability to deal with it is what improves. That's it.
thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, because it really, it does. When you think about it, you can think of a situation that you were in 4 or 5 years ago that you're in again today, and it seems like it's not as bad, but it's not that it isn't. It's only because you've gone through it before and you've already recognized the tools that you have to deal with. It's kind of like if you get sick and then your body is fighting off an infection, and then the next time you get sick, you're able to get over it quicker because your body already recognizes this particular strain. So thank you very much for saying that. My therapist actually said that, so I can't take credit for it fully. I've just been passing it on, but I'm sure she heard it from someone else as well. So yeah, thank you. um so there's so many questions I have for you. um but one of the things that you have talked about on Clubhouse as well is you'll go for a morning walk, and I think you said it lasts about an hour, over an hour. And so when you go for these walks, is it freeing for you? Is there a particular driving factor that you go on them for? Is it to like clear your head and prime your brain before your day, or just to get some exercise in? Why do you think that you go for these walks?
Oh, I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of reasons. I think when COVID hit and we're under house arrest and we had very limited things we could do, uh, my ability to choose to walk was something that I felt like I had control of. I knew the importance, both physically and mentally, to go outside. We know about that in terms of serotonin and vitamin D and being in sunlight and, being out in nature, and how psychologically that really helps, our mood. And obviously, when you couldn't see anybody, even if you passed a stranger, they gave you a smile. So there was some of that, and it's also around my Fitbit. I love the Fitbit is probably one of the best things, influences in my life the last 2 years, because it holds you accountable. It's got great stats, and so I compete against myself. I have a minimum requirement to do 10,000 steps a day. So when I go out for my walk, I know that I'm fulfilling that. And actually, that then translates into weight loss. So one of my kind of goals for the year was to lose 14 pounds in body weight. And so actually last month I weighed myself, and within a month I'd lost 6 pounds. And it was from really
Wow.
just prioritizing my ability to walk. So it's not just for the mental, it's not just for doing 10,000 steps. It's actually what I notice puts me in the best state of mind. It gives me the endurance to do 3 or 4 clubhouses in a day, to mentor clients, to write an article, to be a father, to check in on my friends. You know, it's just one thing that just fuels my cup. It fills my cup, and then I can really give and be better for those around me. And so it's got a number of benefits for me, and a number of reasons why I do this. But this is really about me setting myself up for success every day, going for a walk. This is my space. And that what I do during those walks, sometimes I'm very present. I'm listening to birds. I'm looking for wildlife. Other times, I'm actually thinking about what I've got ahead for the rest of the day. Sometimes I'll send a message, so it's not always just an hour and 20 minutes of me just being one with nature. It does tend to take different forms, but the benefits to me are so massive. I think once you know something works for you, you're a fool to then not do it.
Mm, absolutely. Absolutely. I like that a lot. Yeah, because if you find something that is benefiting your life, like what would be the rhyme or reason to stop and switch it up and do something else, you
Exactly.
know?
Greg Reed said on a Clubhouse, he said, if it feeds you, feed it. If it eats you, chop it off. And I think you
Mm,
can utilize that in most things in life. So the things that really nourish you, they build you up, they make you strong, they make you feel good. Do more of that. The stuff that defeats you, depresses you, cuts off your supply, get rid of it.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the reason that a lot of people have a hard time doing that, because, logically we ask ourselves, all right, if there's something that's not good for us, then why would we continue at it? And I think the answer to that is instant gratification, because, if we have these short bursts of things that make us excited, or these short bursts of dopamine or whatever it might be, or serotonin, then we kind of crave that little feeling, but then it goes away rather quickly. Like, okay, it might be satisfying to eat a bag of chips or something like that right now, but then we might feel bad for the next few hours. Yeah. Well, yeah, I do it all the time too. So, I have a thing for Lay's potato chips if they want to sponsor me one day. I really do. I love them a lot. But a lot of times I'll eat them, and then throughout the rest of the day I'll just feel bad. So whereas maybe I don't want to have, I don't know, celery with peanut butter or something in the moment, it might ultimately make me feel better, and keep me going on longer and my energy up throughout the day. So yeah, I think that the reason a lot of us do these short-term gratifying things is because they are easier, they are quicker, and the things that will build us up in the long term take more work and probably take more thought. So I think that that's definitely it's important to chop off the things that are not feeding you. And I think there's an old folklore about two wolves, just similar, basically the same concept, but the two wolves inside you. And one is very animalistic, one is intolerable and negative and cruel, and the other one is, you know, powerful and full of light and full of drive and ambition. And I think a father or a grandfather was telling this to a younger kid, and the kid's response was, well, how do you know which wolf wins? How do you know which wolf takes over? And the father says, whichever one you feed. So it's definitely very important to look at what you are giving fuel to in your life, and what you were saying before, the people who you hang around with the most. Because I had definitely noticed the lowest points in my life were when I was in the wrong crowd of people, when I was around bad friends. And then, you know, you can, if you can get over, okay, maybe I will be without a big circle of people around me for a while, or maybe I will be without friends for a little while, then you can make space for people who are going to be more elevating in your life, and people who are going to, you know, maybe it'll take a little longer, but then since I've done that, each friend that I've had next has been better than the one before, you know. So I think it's definitely very important to shed the things that are not serving you, people included. And, you know, of course we have to manage and learn conflict resolution, because we can't just say, oh, some person annoyed me, so I don't want to ever see you again, you know. Like that's not healthy either. You know, some people are just need to find their way, and they are really good people. So we also have to certainly learn how to see past some of the surface level things that might be doing a disservice to some people. But you got to, you know, learn how to differentiate between people that are just need some guidance, and people that are just, you know, kind of rotten to the core. So I think that that's very powerful. Have you always surrounded yourself with people who have uplifted you? And if not, how have you been able to spot out the people that haven't, and, you know, replace them with better?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I probably haven't had that challenge or problem for a long time, but
Yeah.
I obviously did have that at one point, and I think when we're younger, we all suffer fools a little, and then we realize our own self-worth, and we realize that we should have respect and should be appreciated, and if we're not, then you don't suffer that anymore, and I have a real tight niche of friends, and I use the word friend very, you know very tightly. I don't say friend easily. I understand, at least to me, what a friend really looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it is really important that when you know your own value, you know your worth, then actually the people that you invest in, and the five that I've invested in are really some of the most beautiful people on the planet. It's very reciprocal. It's flow. So it's never, me doing all the, motivating, inspiring care check-ins. It's a nice, beautiful symphony of where it's a give and take. It's a natural flow, and there's this sense of, I say to people, if you feel shortchanged in relationships, it's not, the problem isn't in your giving, it's in who you're giving to. One of my favorite proverbs, don't cast your pearls to swine. It's not saying don't cast your pearls. It's saying don't cast your pearls to swine. The problem isn't in the giver, it's in where you're giving to. It's the same in relationships. The problem isn't you. The problem is where you're giving to. If you feel shortchanged, it's a sure sign that you're giving to pigs, like it or not. But that's the reality. And I don't invest my time in pigs. I don't invest my time in people that don't appreciate it, that don't respect it. And I'm very sensitive to it as well. If I feel somebody's just taking and just sucking and wanting to ride off, my influence, my connections, my success, I sniff it out like a rat. It's really hard for me to realize and not realize when people are like that. But also I'm really intuitive with people. So when me and you connected, Michaela, I knew your spirit was good, I knew your energy was good, I knew your mind was good, I know that your heart is good. And if you make mistakes in life, I already know that it will be out of naivety, it won't be out of malice. And people like yourself, I love to kind of just get behind, support, do things with. You're an incredible lady. You've got a great podcast. You're fantastic on Clubhouse. What you say, how you say it, your sweetness, your gentleness is beautiful. And you're the sort of person that I want around in my influence, because you give. Your energy alone makes you want to eat at the same table as you. And I can't say that for everybody.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's such a beautiful compliment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really it's so amazing that we get to see so much of someone else just through these audio things or just through online, because it's difficult sometimes to get the sense of who someone is unless you're standing face to face having lunch together. It's much more difficult to get it through this way, but I have to give it back to you and say that you have been an incredible person to host these rooms with. You have been such a powerful presence, and you do, like you said before, let other people speak, and as long as they're respectful, let everyone else get up on stage. And you've said many times, I don't care if I'm the last person here until an hour passed. I want to hear everyone who has been called onto the stage speak. And so I think that that's a mark of someone who is humble and someone who is a giver as well. And like you were saying before, have always supported the underdog and always supported people who are who need it. So I think that that's very telling of a character of a person. So I appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. And is there anything that you would like to say? Let's see, I don't know exactly. Okay, yes. It's 1:59 here. So is there anything that you would like to say in closing? Anything you would like to end with? I will also include your information so people can find you when I post this. So take it away.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm always focused on the fact that we only get one shot at this life, and there's no time to wait. I very much live in the now. I know that tomorrow isn't guaranteed, so do everything with heart or not at all. Create something that is gonna outlive you. Solve problems, be humble, be teachable, learn to listen, ask great questions. These are some of the reasons why I think, some people grow quicker than others. Know when it's a time to be the student or when it's the time to step up and teach. And I think finally, actually, I want to ask you a question, Michaela. I want to ask you, why do you do this podcast? What is the backstory, and why is it that you keep interviewing other people in this space?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. But before I answer, I want to say I like what you said about asking questions. If people can be a lifelong learner, then that's very important. But the reason I do this podcast, the reason I started it, was ultimately because in a very very vague sense, I want to help people. But more specifically, I want people to realize their own power and get in tuned with their with what we were all born with. Get in tuned with what they can offer the world and really see who they are. So I wanna give people the tools and help people with things that I've already learned or things that I'm still learning now, and open the conversation. So I like to see where people are at. I like to interview people and see what they have learned. So whoever is watching this podcast can glean something out of it. I've said things in the past and people have messaged me like, I've never heard it that way before. Thank you for saying this because it made me think in a whole new way. And someone saying something like that, like, for anyone who has a podcast, if you learn something from it, I hope that you reach out to that person, because it really gives the motivation for me to keep going and for me to keep speaking on what I've learned. And so those are just the people that have said something. So I imagine there are more people that have learned from what I say and haven't said something, which is of course fine as well. But I think it's definitely important to reach out and let someone know. So I just love to interview people, and I love to hear what is going on in someone's life, hear what is working for them and their thought processes. And I really just want people to get connected with what they have to give, and feel grounded in the same time, and feel like they have other people who are going through the same things. I think it's really powerful for people to know that they're not alone in any situation. A lot of times people will look to other people if they're going through hard times, and just see if anyone else has gone through it as well. So you can talk about it. So yeah, so I really do my podcast to help people feel more powerful and help people live out the best version of themselves.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And I've even like, I've looked in my notes, just clearing out my phone, looking in my notes pages and seen from 3 or 4 years ago, just like, oh, video idea or title of a video idea and just little kind of bits and pieces. And then I look at what I'm doing now and it makes sense. So
It does. And you're doing it with heart. That's why you love it.
thank you. Yes, yeah, absolutely doing it with heart. This never feels like work. The only time it ever gets tedious is when I'm editing,
Oh,
like when I'll do my own personal ones, and then I'm editing out like the breaths in between or whatever. But with the interviews, it's not much editing that goes on because it's just a flow. But when I do my individual ones, it's definitely it could take like an hour sometimes to just go through each little tiny clip. But it's fine. I make fun of it, so or
yeah.
make it fun rather.
So yeah, I hate editing. Just let me talk to people, and the technical stuff, somebody else can do it.
Yeah, then you can divvy out jobs for other people. Yeah, when I start making money from this, I think I'll have someone to edit them. So I think that'll be a load off.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you being here. Everyone, I hope that you've learned something from this podcast. And if you'd like to connect with Mark, I will leave all of his information in the description below. So thank you for coming to Train Your Brain podcast, where you can come interested, leave inspired. I'm Michaela. This is Mark, and have a wonderful day.
You too, Michaela.
It's, let me stop this recording. Hold on.